AEW Dynamite in Pittsburgh. And it was probably the best show out of all four so far. Let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to tonight's edition of All Elite Review. And today we are going to be reviewing the fourth episode of AEW Dynamite for October the 23rd, 2019 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, their second stop in the state of Pennsylvania. What else can you say other than the fact that this show kicked all kinds of ass? I mean, last week's show had some highly anticipated matches, a couple of championship matches, and to me it just kind of underwhelmed. This week though, it kicked major ass, and the ending to the main event I think was actually perfect. Left the fans wanting more, and it kept both guys strong. We'll be talking about that in a little wee bit. But of course, tag team wrestling has kind of been the thing for AEW as of late, for obvious reasons. I mean, they still got the tag team title tournament going on, and next week is the finals. We finally have our two teams that will be competing in the first ever AEW World Tag Team Championship match. And I will be very surprised if that is not the main event for next week's show, because it is such a big deal. Speaking of the Tag Team Championship Tournament, tonight's show, interestingly enough, started with both semi-final matches. That's kind of interesting. But it was fast and furious right off the beginning. The first match was Private Party taking on the Lucha Brothers, and they just went right into it. I mean, they didn't do the usual intro or anything. They just went right into the match. So it's like, damn, they're not wasting any time this week. But of course, when you have a packed show like this, I mean, 6 shows, on this card for Dynamite, and only one match went below 12 minutes. And it was the women's match, which featured, of course, Dr. Britt Baker, who was in her hometown of Pittsburgh. Which was renamed Britsburg for tonight. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, every single one of these matches tonight, aside from the women's match, was either 12 or 13 minutes long. And there wasn't really a whole lot to say as far as botches. I think like 95% of it was clean. And after some of the botch fests that we saw last week, I mean, this was a lot better. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first match of the night, was Private Party against Lucha Brothers, like I said, in the first semi-final match for the tag team title tournament. Highlights of this match, and there were a lot. This was probably the best match of the night. This was definitely a highly anticipated match, because just how good both of these teams are. Mark Quinn starts out with a drop kick. Phoenix hits a German suplex and then a jumping enziguri. Cassidy hits an assisted Frankensteiner with an assistance from his teammate. A Private Party hits their Manhattan drop enziguri combo and then their camel clutch double stomp combo. Quinn hits a senton atomico to the outside. Cassidy hits an enziguri of his own, and then they hit their silly string, which is where Quinn gets sent up over his teammate who's on the apron, flies back in and does like a spinning tornado DDT to their opponent. It looks really good. And then Quinn hits a very beautiful 450 splash for a 2 count. I tell you, Mark Quinn, his aerial prowess is fucking amazing. I mean, he hits that 450 splash and that shooting star press of his damn near perfect every single time. I mean, the dude can fucking fly. And so can his teammate as well. I mean, these guys were all over the place. And not just Private Party. It was Lucha Brothers were all over the fucking place too. I mean, it was like, I'm trying to write down my fucking notes here, and I'm trying to keep another eye on the fucking match, because it's like There's so much going on, it's not even funny. It was damn sure entertaining, I'll tell you that much. And then the Lucha Brothers come in with their super kicks. Phoenix hits an inverted coup de grace. And what I mean by that is he's actually facing the turnbuckle. He's on the top turnbuckle like he's going to do like a moonsault, but then jumps off and does the double stomp. I thought that was really interesting. Another interesting thing that I saw tonight was the Lucha Brothers were breaking out moves that were not normally a part of their arsenal that I've seen up to this point, which I thought was kind of interesting. They were breaking out brand new moves that we don't normally see from them. So that kind of added another layer to the dynamic here. And then an interesting little bit happened where the Lucha Brothers placed one of the Private Party guys on top of the other one. I forget who it was. But then they did a drop kick that caused the guy on the top to fall backwards and accidentally do a poison Frankensteiner to his teammate. One of them gets sent to the outside. I think it was Cassidy that was sent to the outside. And then Phoenix does his little jump on the middle rope and then back up to the top rope and does a fucking high Asai moonsault. He got so much height on that thing. I was just like, holy shit. Like, that was insane. And then Pentagon hits his pump handle driver on Quinn for a 2 count. Quinn comes back with a Frankensteiner. Cassidy starts hitting springboard Frankensteiners and a tope suicida, and then an Asai moonsault of his own. And then he actually hits a crucifix driver for a 2 count. I think it was to Pentagon where he was kind of bent over. Cassidy was on the apron, and he actually does like a side flip over Pentagon and actually gets him into the crucifix. And I'll tell you what, that looked really good, and that was something I hadn't seen before out of Cassidy. So these guys were breaking out all new moves for this match tonight, and it was awesome. It's like, damn, they're keeping it fresh right now. Phoenix hits his 619 roundhouse, which always looks nice. But Private Party comes back and hits the assisted Shiranui. And then Cassidy hits like a tornado press. I think the official name is Tornado to the outside. And I was like, Jesus Christ, they're pulling out all the stops tonight. And then Quinn hits his absolutely beautiful shooting star press for a 2 count. Phoenix hits kind of a wasteland type maneuver. And then he hits a gory bomb leg drop combo on both of his opponents. Pentagon comes in and hits his sling blade, which always looks good. And then he breaks out a backbreaker bomb, which is another move I hadn't seen before from Pentagon. And then the Lucha Brothers try to go for Zero Fear. Quinn counters out of it and sends Pentagon into his brother, who is perched on the top rope. And then Private Party hits the gin and juice on the illegal man, unfortunately. Pentagon hits a super kick, and then Private Party tries to go for another gin and juice, but Pentagon counters with a Canadian Destroyer. And I thought, damn, that was a hell of a counter right there. Phoenix hits his rope run kick, which always looks good. Pentagon hits his arm breaker, and then the Lucha Brothers hit their Zero Fear finisher, with Phoenix diving out of the ring as usual, and the Lucha Brothers get the 3 count and the victory. Just an absolutely fucking phenomenal match. It honestly makes me wish that the match was longer. If the match was a little bit longer and they were continuing to just hit move after move after move after move, I think I would have given this match 5 stars. But I can't really give it that much. But I will give it 4.5 stars out of 5. This match was fucking awesome. This was a pay-per-view level match, and I would honestly love to see these two teams go at it in a pay-per-view where, you know, the sky's the limit. I mean, can you imagine Private Party against the Lucha Brothers in like a ladder match for the tag team titles? Whew. That would be nuts. So the Lucha Brothers advance to the finals, and it was kind of predictable after the Lucha Brothers attacked SCU that we were probably going to see a Lucha Brothers SCU final, so it was a little bit telegraphed, unfortunately, after the Lucha Brothers attacked SCU the previous week. talking. I thought my phone was ringing. Speaking of which, the next match was SCU versus the Dark Order. And the Dark Order was actually starting to get some proper boos, and SCU was getting some cheers. So that certainly helped out. So, the semifinal match, number 2, to determine who would face the Lucha Brothers next week in Charleston, West Virginia. Highlights of this match, and there were a lot in this one too. Frankie Kazarian with his Japanese arm drag. Evil Uno hits a nice little high kick. I mean, he may not look athletic, but he can do some pretty athletic moves. Dark Order hits a low drop kick running knee combo. Kaz, of course, hits his 3-hit combo, which always looks really nice. Scorpio Sky, in proper ring attire this time, hits a nice drop kick. Uno hits a corner splash, and then Grayson hits a forearm smash for a 2 count. Scorpio Sky hits a double stomp, and then Kazarian hits an elevated drop kick in the corner for a 2 count, where he basically jumps, pushes up on the corner, and then floats down with a drop kick. Stu Grayson hits a nice Pele kick. Uno sends Scorpio Sky into the stairs. Stu Grayson with his helo onto the apron. Kind of like the helo into the ring, but it's the opposite way, and it's on the apron. It looks really nice. Scorpio Sky hits a lariat, but Stu Grayson hits an Uranagi. And then Evil Uno hits a Swanton Bomb for a 2 count. Uno hits a suplex for a 2 count. And then the Inner Circle appears in the crowd with tickets. They all had the night off. Of course, while they had the night off technically, and they had tickets in the crowd, they would actually play a part later on in the show, which we'll get to in a bit. Scorpio Sky hits a neck breaker and tags in Kazarian, who hits a flying forearm and his springboard leg drop. I'll tell you what, that springboard leg drop looks really nice. He hits it really good. He hits a swinging neck breaker, and then he hits an O'Connor roll and a Northern Lights on both opponents for a 2 count. That always looks really cool. Grayson with a rising knee. I always love the knee strikes. The knee strikes always look really good. And then Grayson hits a belly to belly into the corner for a 2 count. Evil Uno hits a sit out powerbomb. But then SCU comes back with a lung blower and a cutter from both guys. Kaz hits a cutter on Stu Grayson. And then they lock both opponents in a Dragon Sleeper. But Grayson powers Kazarian into the other two to break up both holds. Grayson does like a shoulder walk, kind of monkey flip, where he walked across the shoulders of Kazarian, Uno, and the referee, and basically tossed Scorpio Sky to the side. That looked kind of cool. And then Uno hits his Ataxia, which is kind of like that single pump handle flip over into a flatliner. It's kind of hard to describe, but it looks pretty cool. I mean, it's a very unique maneuver. But he only got a 2 count out of it. Cat, what are you doing? Quit licking the damn book bag. But then Kazarian hits a slingshot DDT on both opponents, one on the apron. And then SCU hits another one of their finishers. They call it the SCU later, which is, it starts out in a gory bomb, but Scorpio Sky then flipped Stu Grayson over into a knee lift from Kazarian, and I was like, ooh, that had to hurt. For the 3 count and the victory. So your winners, and moving on to the World Tag Team Championship Finals, SCU, the duo of Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. I mean, it was telegraphed, but let's be honest here. I mean, considering how good both of these tag teams are, next week's final is probably going to be off the chains crazy. And like I said, I will be very surprised if it's not the main event. Very surprised if it's not the main event. I gave this match 4 stars out of 5. You're going to hear a lot of 4 stars here tonight. I think 4 of the 6 matches got 4 stars. Then next up, we actually have a rematch from AEW Dark. The Lights Out match from episode 2. Joey Janella, the bad boy, against Kenny Omega. Because the match apparently received a lot of positive vibes from the audience. So it's like, well, let's have it count this time. You know, and there were a few people like, why are we having a rematch between Janella and Omega? Well, the first time was a lights out match and it was non-sanctioned, which means that it didn't count. This one does count, so that's the difference. And there's no weapons, so it's all based on pure wrestling ability. And this was yet another damn fine match between these two. And lots of hard-hitting moves, too. Highlights of this match. Janella starts out with an arm drag. Omega hits a nice running Yakuza kick and then a pescado. Janella starts hitting running uppercuts in the corner, which looks nice. Janella actually hit a nice foot sweep when Omega was coming at him, and then hit a low drop kick. I was like, oh, that was pretty good. And then Janella hits a flying crossbody to the outside. Then we go to a commercial break. A couple of poorly timed commercial breaks, in my opinion. Omega hits his Singapore roll. Tries to go for the follow-up moonsault, but Janella puts the knees up. But Omega counters into some Snapdragon suplexes. Janella counters with a Snap German suplex of his own. And then he hits a dynamic elbow drop, a Shawn Michaels style elbow drop for a 2 count. Then he goes up to the top rope, but Omega hits, basically drops out and hits a corner snake eyes on him. Then he hits a Snapdragon and V-trigger for a 2 count. Then he tries to go for another V-trigger, but Janella bypasses him, and Omega hits the ropes, comes back, and Janella hits a rebound German suplex. Janella hits a scissors kick. Omega counters with a rising knee strike. Then Omega looked like he was going to go for a Fisherman Buster, but Janella countered with one of his own. And then he started running off the ropes a couple times, and then he hit Omega with an absolutely vicious-looking lariat for a 2 count. Then he climbs up to the top rope. Omega had rolled over towards the apron. Tries to go for a somersault splash on the apron, but Omega moves out of the way, and Janella hit nothing but apron. And I imagine that didn't feel very good. Omega sends Janella back into the ring, hits a very beautiful V-trigger, and then he hits the one-winged angel for the 3 count and the victory. So Kenny Omega actually has a winning record now. He's at 4-3. And according to my rankings, that actually puts him up into the top 5 in the overall rankings. So conceivably, he could become a championship contender sometime in the near future. And it would make sense. So there's that. But yeah, yet another great match between these two. I mean, it's obvious that Janella and Omega, they have tremendous chemistry in the ring. The moves look very nice. And of course, we kind of had a feeling based on the Lights Out match where they went 26 fucking minutes. Now, obviously, this one didn't go as long. It only went about half as long, 13 and a half minutes, but damn. For the time allotted, they really put on a good show. And I gave this match 4 stars out of 5 as well. And then we were going to have this interview by Cody, and he actually teased it on Twitter, and apparently had some sort of announcement. We never got to hear what that announcement was, because the Inner Circle had these fucking air horns, and they were blowing them while he was trying to talk, and then Jericho got on the mic, started talking trash, and then Cody Rhodes basically said, "This is not like that other company we were both from where there's an invisible wall around the ring." Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I fucking died at that one. Obviously, he's talking about WWE and the way they have, certain shit where, there's a confrontation, but the guy in the ring doesn't get out of the ring for some reason, which is just fucking stupid. But Jericho continued to troll like, yeah, it's 4-on-1, and then Cody brings out Dustin, the natural Dustin Rhodes, MJF, who's getting kind of a babyface look right now, even though he's still kind of heelish in a way. And then Diamond Dallas Page shows up, and it's like DDP. And of course, he's a friend of the Nightmare family, so Yeah, that him doing the diamond cutter thing, that got a huge pop. And they all started walking up towards the skybox where the inner circle was. And Jericho and company was like, yeah, we're going to go into this room, and they locked the door. Cody motions to MJF to give him his scarf, and he punches the fucking window. I mean, I don't know if that's a legit window with sugar glass, but that looked fucking pretty awesome. And the war was on. They started going at each other, and eventually security separates them all. Holy shit. Like, this war between the Elite and the Inner Circle, you know, this is just getting started. And it's going to go for a while, I think, because, I mean, these are two groups that, you know, have unbridled talent out the ass. You know, and that battle between Cody and Jericho at Full Gear, I think, is going to be a 5-star classic. Just going to throw that out there right now. But we're only an hour into the show, which flew by. And it's like, damn, I've given a 4.5, a 4, and a 4-star for the first 3 matches. Now it would taper off a little wee bit, but not too much. I mean, this show was just on fire from the word go. Because they were just like, fuck the intro, let's just get right into it. And it was just non-stop action. You know, which personally I want in my fucking wrestling. I don't want to watch, you know, half an hour of fucking talking at the beginning of the show. You know, and Raw can kind of get away with that at times because it is a 3-hour show, but you can't really get away with that on a 2-hour show because, I mean, if you take like a half an hour to 45 minutes to talk, well, fuck, that's 25% of the show just, you know, doing promos and shit. You know, if you want to do a promo here and there and all and that sort of thing, then fine. But, you know, just yap is just not going to do it for me. Because I typically tune out when it comes to that shit. You know, but with AEW, it's short, simple, and to the point. And you don't have any fucking scripted bullshit. You know, they're basically like, you get a couple of bullet points and just go out there and let loose. Just let it flow. And it works. Everything that comes out of their mouths just feels more organic. It feels more authentic in that sense. And it doesn't sound like they're a bunch of fucking robots reading off a piece of paper. I mean, that's just the vibe I get, you know. But moving into the second half of the show, we had the Best Friends take on the Young Bucks. And the Best Friends, of course, have Orange Cassidy at ringside. And he did get involved in this match a little bit. Orange Cassidy was in the ring and he did his lazy super kicks. And the Young Bucks was like, oh, really? Bam! Hit super kick party on him. To kind of get things started there. Orange Cassidy, for the gimmick that he has, he is super over. But once they start, you know, actually utilizing him and, you know, giving him matches and shit, then I mean, I've seen some of his shit on the indies, like some highlights. The dude can fucking wrestle. Like, it's insane. So I think once, you know, they finally let him loose, he's going to be a fucking big star in AEW because he's already over as it is. Just think about what will happen if he starts actually wrestling. But the Best Friends start out with the rocket launcher cutter. Nick, of course, does his springboard X Factor Acai moonsault combo. The Young Bucks with a pendulum backbreaker blockbuster combo, another one of their patented moves. Then they do the Tierra's dropkick combo where one of the Young Bucks kind of locks one of the guys on the apron in place with his legs, and then the other one does a drop kick. Chuck kind of hits a pseudo suplex on the apron, and then Trent hits a spear, and this is all on the apron, or on the outside. And then the Best Friends hit a Doomsday knee strike on Matt Jackson, I believe. Or was it Nick? I can't quite remember, but Matt hits a springboard DDT on the apron on, I believe it was Chuck. Trent comes in with a baseball drop kick and then a knee drop for a 2 count. Get a commercial break. Nick hits a nice roundhouse kick, but then Trent comes back with a German suplex. Chucky T hits some overhead belly-to-belly suplex. And it's a series of moves, a rising knee, a Shiranui, and a sit-out powerbomb. And then he hits the Falcon Arrow. I believe this was all on Nick Jackson, by the way, for a 2 count. Trent hits an avalanche German suplex on Matt Jackson. And then the Best Friends hit their soul food half and half suplex, and of course they do the hug afterwards. Orange Cassidy with a crossbody with his hands in his pockets on both of the Young Bucks. And then the Best Friends hit Strong Zero, which is their double stomp crunchy combo. But Nick Jackson comes in and breaks up the count at 2 with a Swanton Bomb, which, that's typical Young Bucks. Matt hits a super kick, and then the Young Bucks start hitting the super kick party. Nick does a nice spaceman dive to the outside, which took out both Trent and Orange Cassidy, who was standing right beside him. And then, instead of opting to go for the Meltzer driver as they usually do, the Young Bucks went with one of their other finishers, which was the Singapore Roll 450 moonsault combo for the 3 count and the victory. Yet another high-octane, clean tag team match. And the Young Bucks get back in the win column. And they are now 5-3 overall, whereas the Best Friends have now dropped 4 straight. So they're kind of falling down the ranks a little bit. But I gave this match 4 stars out of 5 as well. Just awesome wrestling in this show tonight, man. It's absolutely insane. Like, this is what I want to see in professional wrestling. Just awesome fucking wrestling. Not the 5 moves of doom bullshit and the watered down movesets that we see in WWE. I mean, it's really hard for me to believe that, I swore off watching professional wrestling on a regular basis, all those years ago when, WWE was basically still the only ticket in town. And I didn't think I would ever get back into watching professional wrestling on a full-time basis ever again. It would just be, we're just watching highlight reels and shit like that. That's until this company came along and completely changed everything. Now I can't even imagine missing an AEW Dynamite right now. I mean, if I missed an episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite, I would fucking go insane. That's how much this fucking company has locked me into watching. I mean, it's great to be a pro wrestling fan again on a full-time basis, because I kind of fell out of it for a while. Because what WWE was putting out, and is still putting out, it's just not for me. It's kiddie bullshit. And it insults your intelligence, and they basically do whatever the fuck they want, and it's like, fuck what the fans want. Whereas AEW, they're actually listening to their fan base, and all that shit, and they're putting on awesome wrestling. And they're putting over the talent that they want to see put over. That's just my perception of it, And I know some people don't like AEW, but honestly, even if you don't like AEW, you want them around to try to get the WWE to up their game a little bit. It's that way, because competition is what makes business work, because it inspires rival companies to try to do better, to try to come up with creative ideas. And who benefits the most from that? The fans. Because it's like, man, now we got great products to watch, because on Wednesday nights you got NXT, who's been absolutely fucking killing it from what I heard. Apparently there was some crazy shit that happened on their show tonight, and I'm recording this on Wednesday, by the way. And then you have AEW Dynamite, which kicked ass tonight. So I mean, you got 2 quality wrestling programs right now on Wednesday nights. And as a consumer, that just, I mean, it makes your tallywhacker stand at attention. You know what I mean? Because it's like, man, we're getting some great product, some great wrestling action out of both NXT and AEW right now. I mean, I'm not a watcher of NXT, but I do watch, like highlights and shit, because I do have some favorites on that show as well. But for me right now, All Elite Wrestling is where it's at. And, it's like, I want to start, doing wrestling reviews, and AEW is where it's at right now for me. Anyways, moving on to the lone women's match of the night. Look at that. Riho, this is her first show that she's not been on. Of course, I said last week that I think it was time to kind of dial her back a little wee bit, so that way she's not, over-presented, I guess you could say. I mean, she's still mega over with the crowd. I mean, that's why she's had, as many matches as she's had. But that's kind of amazing that this is her first show that she's not been on. But she's been traveling all over the world. Of course, she has 3 championships, 2 over in Asia. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's time, to give her a little bit of a break. And plus, we need to start kind of building up the rest of the women's division. One thing I would like to see them start doing is in the coming couple of shows before Full Gear, we actually start getting some women's matches and try to build up the rest of the women's division. Because right now, the women's division is basically Riho and Britt Baker, who is in this next match. And I love the continuity here that they showed once again, because Dr. Britt Baker's opponent is a English wrestler named Jamie Hayter, and that's Hayter spelled Hayter. She looks kind of similar to Bea Priestley in a way, and that's not exactly a coincidence, because Jamie Hayter is Bea Priestley's tag team partner over in Stardom. Continuity, people. And shit makes sense. It's like, yeah, her opponent is Bea Priestley's tag team partner in Stardom. And who's been having a beef with Dr. Britt Baker over the course of the last 4 or so months? Bea Priestley. Continuity, people. And storylines that actually have some common fucking sense. Who'd have thought? Personally, this was, I think, the weakest match on the card, but, I mean, let's be honest here, it really wasn't terrible, honestly. I mean, there was only, like, 1 or 2 minor botches, but they were really minor, and the moves still looked pretty good, regardless. And that's the thing with Britt Baker right now, is that her performances can be kind of all over the place. I mean, the last couple of shows, she's been kind of sloppy at times. And of course, it kind of showed up in the women's title match last week as well. This week, it was definitely a lot better. I think there was only like 1 minor botch from her when she did one of the sling blades, which I'll get to in a minute. But I mean, other than that, I mean, she actually did a solid job tonight. And the crowd was obviously behind her because, it's her hometown. So, highlights of the match. And this one only lasted 8 minutes. So it was the only match that was less than 10 minutes. Hayter comes in with a flurry of punches and elbows. Hayter hits a Northern Lights suplex into the turnbuckle. Ow. And then Hayter runs Baker into the steel post on the outside. Then Baker hits a nice sling blade on the outside. She hits a small package and a schoolgirl for 2 counts. And then a running neck breaker. But Hayter takes advantage for a bit and hits her with some mounted punches. And then a body slam, and then a camel clutch. And then she actually stuck her finger in her mouth and did like a wet willy. and the camera pointed to someone in the crowd, and they kind of had this look on their face like, what the fuck was that? That was actually kind of funny. Because that look on their face was fucking funny. Both ladies start trading forearm shots. Hayter actually kind of gets Baker in a kind of a buzz killer, which is kind of the guillotine, the rear naked choke. I like calling it the buzz killer because that's what I know it as, at least in professional wrestling. Baker basically falls back onto the mat to break the hold. She hits another sling blade. This one not as clean. She kind of dropped to her knees after she did the spin, but it was okay for what it was. Hayter hits a nice Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. Lots of Falcon Arrows in this show tonight. It's a move we don't typically see all that often, but we saw 3 of them tonight. One from Chuck Taylor, one from Jamie Hayter, and we'll see actually one more, which was an Avalanche version in the main event. We'll get to that in a bit. She only got a 2 count out of that, though. Hayter also hits a nice little knee strike for a 2 count. Britt Baker hits a superplex, which was off the middle rope, but then Hayter comes back with a Uranagi, nearly drops Baker on her head, and definitely don't need that happening considering that she's already had 1 concussion this year. Then Hayter hits a nice lariat for a 2 count. Baker with a super kick. Holy shit. That was a nice super kick. Definitely channeling her boyfriend Adam Cole in that one. Because that was nice. Hayter shook it off, tried to come at Baker, but then Baker counters with a nice little cutter. And then a fisherman neck breaker for a 2 count. She hits one more super kick when Hayter's on her knees. And then Baker, of course, locks in the Rings of Saturn, which, of course, leads to the lockjaw for the submission victory. Yeah, I think it was the weakest match on the card, but calling it the weakest match on this show, I mean, especially considering that there were still some good spots in it. I mean, 3 stars out of 5 is still not bad. And Britt Baker still definitely has some room for improvement. You know, I think she could really be a big star. I just think that the spotlight last week was a bit much for her right now. She definitely looked a little bit intimidated based on her performance, you know, by the spotlight of a world title match. But give her some time, and she'll work the kinks out. And this week was a much better performance. Afterwards, in the back, Hayter was about to be interviewed, but was attacked from behind by Brandy Rhodes. She kind of looked really pissed off, and of course that was probably in response to what happened between her husband and the Inner Circle earlier. By the way, we still didn't know. We never got what that announcement was from Cody. And then we get to our main event, which actually had an interesting wrinkle. Now, they always say for the main event, with TV time remaining, which I think is a pretty interesting wrinkle, because it adds a sense of urgency to the main event of the show. And it also brings in the time limit draw, which we don't really see in big league professional wrestling anymore. I say that because we're about to see one. What you want, Chitty? This cat wants attention while I'm trying to do this damn review. Okay, so main event. Jon Moxley against the Bastard Pact. Of course, this came about after last week when Pact tried to basically tell Moxley, hey, I don't want to be disqualified and suffer a loss. And then Moxley hit the dirty deeds on him and cost him the match anyway. And of course, this led to an instantaneous booking of this main event between Moxley and Pac, which presented an interesting little quandary, because you don't necessarily want to disrupt the momentum for either Pac or Jon Moxley. That's where the time limit draw comes into play, people. Because with the draw, neither man loses and they don't look weak in defeat. But before the match even starts, Pac comes out and attacks Moxley from behind with a chair, similar to what he did with Omega the week before. And it was pretty much all Pac for most of the match. He hit an enziguri, a nice spaceman dive, and then a leg drop for a 2 count. Mox starts trying to fight back by stomping a mud hole into Pac, but Pac hits a nice little 3-kick combo for a 2 count. Had a couple of flipper kicks and then a running single leg kick. Pac hits a running double axe handle and sends Moxley off the apron into the barricade. Mox starts trying to fight back, but Pac sends him into the corner and hits a running uppercut. And he starts hitting chest kicks on Moxley, and then he hits like a nice little buzzsaw kick. And then Pac hits a nice standing shooting star press, basically stood still, and then hit a shooting star press for a 2 count. That looked nice. But then Moxley fights back by bringing... Pac tries to hit a German suplex on the apron on Moxley. Moxley fights back and hits a headlock driver on the apron, where he basically has him in a headlock, kind of in a bulldog position, but then kind of drives his head into the mat. Ooh, that looked vicious, and Pac took that one. I mean, he sold that one pretty brilliantly. Both start trading forearm shots. Moxley hits a nice lariat. Pac hits a scissors kick, bounds off the ropes, but then Mox hits a nice strong lariat that just sends Pac just flipping over backwards. And then Moxley hits an X-plex, which is basically a suplex, but then he just tosses him. That's called the X-plex for a 2 count. Moxley hits a tope suicida. Pac tries to fight back, but then Moxley hits a black hole slam for a 2 count. and then a running knee strike for a 2 count as well. And it was around this time that they said that there was 5 minutes remaining in the match. And it's like, oh shit, we better get this thing going. Moxley locks in the Texas Cloverleaf, but Pac makes it to the ropes. Moxley goes up to the top rope like he's going to go for a top rope move, but Pac jumps up to the top rope and hits an avalanche Falcon Arrow. I was like, damn, that nearly turned into an avalanche screwdriver with how Moxley landed, but only got a 2 count. Moxley tries to go for a schoolboy, only gets a 2 count. Pac hits a soccer kick while Moxley is standing on the outside of the ring, which knocks Moxley to the ground. Pac stands on the apron and hits a 450 splash onto the floor, which looked really nice. Sends Moxley back into the ring, tries to go for the Black Arrow, his corkscrew shooting star press, but Moxley rolls out of the way, and we're down to the final minute, and it's like, oh shit, they gotta hurry. Moxley hits a schoolboy for only a 2 count. Both get back to their feet, and Moxley hits the Dirty Deed Snap double arm DDT as time counts down, and in the final 10 seconds, Moxley rolls Pac over for the pin attempt, but Pac was able to kick out at the last instant, and time expires on the main event. So this match between Moxley and Pac ends in a time limit draw. So Moxley now has a record of 1-1-1, and Pac has a record of 2-1-1. But like I said, neither man lost, and neither man looked weak in this match. They both basically went toe-to-toe for over 12 minutes. And I liked how Moxley, after the match, as the show went off the air, was like, time limit my ass. So I have a feeling these two are going to meet further down the road, and it's going to be one hell of a barn burner. But yeah, I mean, this is a great way, to keep both Pac and Moxley strong. Obviously, both of those guys, they have become a big part, of AEW and how they're being built for potential, future world title runs, and being put into world title matches and stuff like that. I'm going to give this match 3.5 stars out of 5. I think if they would have had, an actual finish, I probably would have given it 4. I'm only going to give it 3.5, but that's to say that I didn't think the draw was actually smart, because it was. I just wish Moxley would have been given a little more offense in the match instead of it being so one-sided early on. But other than that, I mean, this show as a whole was fucking awesome sauce. Like, holy shit. The only thing that was really missing was a title match. But we're going to get one next week. So it'll be interesting to see how the show next week plays out with the Tag Team Title Tournament Finals, which, again, I will be very surprised if the Tag Team Title match is not the main event. But my final rating for this show overall, fucking awesome sauce. This show was absolutely awesome. I'm going to give it a 9.25 out of 10. Like the stuff in the middle with the Inner Circle and the Elite, that was that was crazy sauce. Pretty much all the matches were either solid or fucking awesome. I mean, this is the type of show I wanted to see last week. When we had all the big matches, lined up with the 2 tag team title matches, or the tag team title tournament matches, the 2 singles championship matches. This is the type of quality that I wanted last week and didn't quite get it. But, it is what it is. This show kicked ass, and I can't wait for next week. And it'll be interesting to see what AEW Dark comes out of this show, because if all 6 of the TV matches were good, I wonder, what's that going to do for the Dark matches, Because I hope there's a little bit of a correlation there. Because there is going to be a triple threat match. There's going to be an interesting little tag match as well. And I think there's going to be a third match. I'm not exactly sure what that one is. But yeah, AEW right now is kicking some ass and taking some names. Or kicking some names and taking some ass, whatever way you want to call it. Oh. But that's going to do it for tonight's review. What a hell of a show tonight. And it's got me excited for Full Gear because we've seen on these pay-per-views that they just let the rough side drag. So I think if we're getting this kind of quality on television, what the fuck do you think we're going to get on Full Gear? Full Gear is going to be nuts, I believe. Especially with, I think it's safe to assume that all 3 championships will be on the line. Of course, having all these singles wrestlers in the men's division, it does kind of underscore the fact that we do need a mid-card title at some point. Because, right now, the only championship these guys are really competing for is the world title. But we need a stepping stone title, basically. We need a mid-card championship to, kind of, build some of these guys up, too. That are not necessarily in the world title picture as of yet. I'm pretty sure that'll come a little bit down the road, but I would rather have it happen sooner rather than later. Personally, I would love to see the television championship. I think that would be, the perfect championship for All Elite Wrestling. And maybe sometime down the road. I know they said they didn't want to have like weight divisions and stuff like that, but you could have another pseudo mid-card title with the lightweight championship, basically for some of the smaller guys like a Sammy Guevara, Marco Stunt, some of the smaller guys that are on the roster right now. But that's just how I feel about it. But I would definitely love to see, as far as mid-card titles, I would love to see an AEW television championship. I think that would be perfect. I loved what the WCW title looked like back in the day, the WCW World Television title. I would like to see some kind of recreation of that, if at all possible. But that's just my opinion on it. But yet another great show tonight. I love wrestling again. I think that goes without saying at this point. Next week they are in Charleston, West Virginia, so they're starting their westward trek. And eventually they're going to wind up in Texas, where they're going to be for 2 shows. Actually, they're going to actually go to Charlotte after that, I think. Let me double check real quick. Yeah, they go to Charleston, then to Charlotte, and then to Baltimore for Full Gear. And then they start their westward trek after that. They go to Nashville, then Indianapolis, and then Chicago, Champaign, Illinois. So 2 straight shows in Illinois, and then they go to Texas for 2 straight shows. So they're kind of zigzagging right now. They're going to Pittsburgh, then to West Virginia. Well, they went to Pittsburgh tonight, and then they're going to Charleston, West Virginia next week, and then to Charlotte, North Carolina after that. Then they have Full Gear in Baltimore, and then Nashville, Indy, Chicago, Champaign, Dallas, and Corpus Christi, Texas. And those are the shows that we know of right now. They haven't announced any new ones yet, which is kind of weird considering that they usually announce new ones on Mondays. But they've booked so far ahead right now. They've got 9 shows coming up right now, so it is what it is. But this has gone on long enough. Thank you very much for watching tonight. This has been All Elite Review, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye.
Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan, signing out. Have a good one.